Ravenwing bikers are gaining objectives secured, and there is indeed a new super doctrine for the Ravenwing. Let's take a look at the next round of Dark Angels previews. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where this week we've been covering the Dark Angels previews as they've been coming out, before we do a full Codex review at the weekend. Today in Games Workshop's Warhammer community article they've told us all about the Ravenwing, with two really quite big new rules for them. The ability for bike squads and outrider squads to sort of fill in for troops, their own unique element of the Dark Angel super doctrine, and then the confirmation that a couple of the Ravenwing stratagems still exist, though they have been tweaked a little. It all seems like pretty good news for the secretive black-clad bikers, so let's take a look at these new rules. So first of all we have this army construction rule called Second Company. Firstly, every unit in your army aside from unaligned units must be Dark Angels. Then Dark Angels outrider detachments that only have Ravenwing in them gain this Second Company ability. Firstly, bike squads and outrider squad units in the detachment gain the objective secured ability, as described in the 40k core book. And secondly, if your warlord is part of this detachment's command benefits are changed to +3 command points. Usually in whatever shape you field them, outrider detachments will cost you 3 command points, never regaining them, such as the patrol or battalion detachments. So this does kind of seem to be encouraging all Ravenwing hard-hitting biker armies. I think it seems more possible than ever. Previously Ravenwing had a bit of an issue with HQ choices, that's really not the case anymore. They've got the bike captain, that new chaplain on bike, alongside their standard Samael and Talon Master options. So quite a decent choice of HQs there, and a juicy 6 slots of fast attack to fill all of those attack bikes, ATVs, bike squads and everything else. I think really the biggest reason that you want to include this detachment, rather than just mixing and matching within a big Dark Angels detachment, is that incredibly nice Obsec ability, which is really powerful on fast moving units. In Warhammer 40k, at least for the most part, most troops tend to be at least fairly slow moving. They might be jumping out of transport vehicles and things, but don't tend to be able to move quite as fast as bikers. With Ravenwing bikes and outriders gaining Obsec, you have a quite powerful potential for zipping a squad all the way from one side of the table to the other and stealing an objective from under your opponent's nose. I'm sure between warlord traits, stratagems, relics and things, there'll be plenty of ways to buff Ravenwing units, so at least compared with a lot of other Space Marine bikes, they really should be quite powerful. Having Obsec on top of that, plus this new super doctrine that we'll see in a second, really makes me wonder if we might see full forces of Dark Angels Ravenwing take to the table in competitive games once more. Having that Obsec ability is particularly potent, with the option that the librarians have to remove Obsec from a unit, easily allowing you to flip an objective. And in all honesty, I'm a bit apprehensive if Deathwing get a same rule for their first company. Honestly, Deathwing Terminators are so tough right now that I'm not sure that giving them Obsec will be very good for the game. I guess we'll have to wait and see if Games Workshop has decided to unleash that ludicrousness on us. Moving on, let's take a look at the shiny new Ravenwing Super Doctrine. As we saw on Monday, Dark Angels infantry units get that Fire Discipline ability, the one that allows them to shoot into close combat. I did notice from the way that rule was written that it deliberately excluded all Ravenwing units and all Deathwing units, making me suspect that the other parts of the doctrine would be for the Ravenwing and Deathwing. Now Games Workshop have revealed this one to us, it does seem to be the case, and it's going to be interesting to see what Deathwing get. As expected, the Ravenwing Super Doctrine, Speed of the Raven, is a Devastator doctrine, so applies on turn 1 normally. Though you can use that core Codex Space Marine stratagem to push it on any unit for a turn, and there might be other ways to manipulate doctrines within the new Dark Angels Codex. We'll have to wait and see. In any case, while the Devastator doctrine is in effect, Ravenwing units add +3 inch to their move characteristic, and if they advance they can still shoot with all weapons, but get that normal -1 to hit penalty for shooting weapons when they advance. Both really nice buffs and will apply to the first turn as you're trying to get the bikers into the face of the enemy. Firstly, +3 inch movement is just generally useful. Bikers already move 14, so it'll be a 17 inch movement, plus up to 6 inches for advancing if they want to. It pretty much guarantees the Ravenwing will be in range of shooting, and it makes turn 1 charges very possible indeed. In theory, if you're starting 24 inches away from the opponent, 17 inches should give you a 7 inch charge, which is very likely to go off. Obviously it gets even easier if your opponent has units in the midfield, you're on one of the maps where you deploy a bit closer, or you're going second and your opponent has already moved up. A very nice little speed boost indeed, I'm sure it will come in handy. The next bit is very interesting as well though. All the Ravenwing units will be able to shoot all their weapons despite advancing, even if they're rapid fire or heavy weapons. Obviously anything already armed with assault weapons doesn't really care about this, such as those Black Knights with their plasma talons. but it's incredibly relevant on units such as land speeders, flyers, rapid firing bike squads, and perhaps most importantly on multi-melters on things like attack bikes and ATVs. Obviously taking the -1 to hit penalty isn't ideal, so you would have to weigh the extra damage dealt against the 6-inch movement, but it does kind of have a double benefit. Aside from the flyers, the Ravenwing units all have the Jink special rule, which means that if you advance in a turn, then you get a 4+ invul save against enemy ranged attacks. You could see it being able to advance and shoot your weapons as more sort of a defensive move rather than an offensive move. Sure, you'll gain the extra 6 inches, but maybe the most important thing to trade out that damage for is a nice 4+ invul save to keep your bikes and speeders safe. You're still going to get a very solid amount of fire out of attack bikes, even hitting on 4s, and if to return fire they're safe behind a 4+ invul, they're going to be really annoying to shift as well. I think this one's going to be particularly interesting if there's any advance and charge options present in the Codex. You could potentially have units like Outriders being very scary turn 1, 17-inch movement, plus 6 inches for advancing, still being able to fire those bolt rifles up close, and then potentially charging as well. There's no 100% confirmation either way if there will be yet, and it might be that Games Workshop saves that ability just for the White Scars and doesn't give it to Dark Angels, but if they get it with a stratagem, then it could be really potent. Finally, we have a couple of stratagems, both of which have a Ravenwing focus, though I'm afraid both of these have been slightly toned down compared with their previous versions. Don't get me wrong though, in combination with these 2 new rules that we've seen, I'd still say that they're very powerful and certainly very usable. First up we have Full Throttle, which is the one to make your Ravenwing units move ludicrous distances in one turn. It costs 1 command point if there's 5 models or less in the unit, 2 command points if there's more, and if you advance with the unit, you get to move an extra 12 inches as if you were making a normal move. You can't shoot and you can't charge afterwards, so basically this is sacrificing all damage output and 1 command point for just an absolutely insane movement distance. Combined with that new Devastator Doctrine, it means that your standard bikers could be moving a whopping 35 inches turn 1, which let alone getting to midfield objectives might even allow you to try and swipe a backfield objective from under the opponent's nose. There's honestly really quite a lot of uses for this as the game goes on. You could be hiding your Ravenwing miles out of line of sight of the enemy. You could jump them somewhere safe in a table quarter to pick up some engage on all fronts points, or you could potentially just completely withdraw from one flank and focus all your units on the other one to try and completely overwhelm the enemy there. Certainly a nice little utility piece. I'm sure it could be very powerful in the right situation. The other one that we have is High Speed Focus. This one's 1 command point, and it's used as like a reactive defensive buff in the opponent's shooting phase. When they target one of your Ravenwing units, that unit gets a 4+ invul save. This one was always particularly handy if you were going second, because of course you won't be getting your Jink movement for being able to move turn 1. So it means, say, if your opponent tries to focus down one of your Dark Talons, then this will make that significantly harder to do. Unfortunately, this has been nerfed a bit. It is now only applying to vehicles. You can't just apply it to your entire full Black Knight squad, for example. So I'm afraid it certainly is weaker than it was before. Still though, I think it remains really usable, particularly on expensive flyers like the Dark Talon, or maybe even on a Talon Master that's been caught out of position. If they're about to be shot down by a whole ton of high AP guns, then 1 command point could make them twice as hard to kill. Certainly some nice insurance for your flyers if you don't happen to go first and your opponent has some really long ranged guns. So despite the stratagems being a little bit toned down, I think that overall this is a massive win for the Ravenwing, a really nice boost to their turn 1 performance when they need it most, and getting objectives secured on some tough biker units is no bad thing either. Really looking forward to what else they can do in the Dark Angels Codex. I'm looking forward to reviewing that at the weekend. If you'd like to see more Dark Angels content or other 40k stuff in general, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where we'll certainly be keeping the regular 40k strategy videos coming. Finally, if you have been enjoying my videos, I would just like to mention that the channel has a Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description below. Making all of these videos does take a fair amount of time, and if you are enjoying regularly, then any support is massively appreciated, as it is what keeps these videos coming. Channel patrons do get a few advantages. They regularly get to see new videos early, there are frequent polls to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and there's also automatic entry into the Auspex Tactics prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits every single month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.